we were very terrified. We just like, I don't think we belong here. We need to get the hell out of here. And, going through this whole scene, I mean, we trekked through these thick Papuan rainforests, and it was quite intense.
You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast, brought to you by 180 Tech. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there.
So, before we get started today, I wanted to reintroduce myself. My name is Mason Gravely, and my wife and I, her name is Emily, we're going to be helping Kurt and Travis out with some production, with some hosting, with some editing of the show. So we wanted to just make sure you get more familiar with their voices, and we also wanted to make some announcements. As all of you know, nothing in life is free, including this podcast. It costs money, it costs time and energy to produce this, and one way that you can help ensure this show will keep going is becoming a patron of the show. And I apologize, I don't typically sound like this. I have a little bit of a cold, so it's making me sound funny. Anyway, if you want to become a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. It costs $5 a month, and it gets you access to an extra episode a week that has to do with living your life outside the box. So if you're someone who wants to kind of break out of that corporate mold or your 9-to-5, and you want to pursue your passions that have to do with adventure sports or with the outdoors, this is a great series where you can learn from other people who are actually doing it, who are actually producing an income doing it. It's incredible. For $5 a month, you really can't beat that. And also, if you don't want to listen to those episodes, just think of it as helping the show out. You get to basically buy us a couple cups of coffee every month just as a thank you. So please consider supporting the show, and then you'll be able to rest easy knowing that you get to help make this show happen. So thank you. Now back to the episode.
Hi friends, Kurt here. Wow, do I have a show for you today. I have Tashi and Nungshi Malik. And Tashi and Nungshi are twins. They were born in 1991. And they have completed not only the 7 summits, but they have also completed the Adventurers Grand Slam and the 3 Poles Challenge. What this means is they've skied to both the North and South Poles, as well as climbing the highest point on each of the 7 continents. And I am so excited to visit with them. They grew up in India, and that's where I caught up with them today at Dehradun. Now, did I say Dehradun correctly?
That's right. It is.
Well, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Hello, Curtis. Thank you. I mean, we're absolutely delighted and equally excited to talk to you.
Well, it really is an honor to talk to the two of you. Not only have you accomplished what so few people ever can with the Adventurers Grand Slam, but you have also done it to promote female empowerment and to promote what you call the Indian girl child. And so we're going to get into all of that as this interview continues. But before we do, let's just go back to Dehradun. Can you tell us what Dehradun is like and in what part of India that is?
Sure. Well, Dehradun is a city in the northern part of India, and it's not far from the capital, Delhi. The beautiful thing about Dehradun is it's in the foothills of the Mussoorie Hills, which is why it makes it more scenic and green. And, it's monsoons now, so we're enjoying the perfect rains outside. But apart from that, I mean, Dehradun definitely is a city where we have spent most of our time because our mom is from here. And, it's a city where you get to see a lot more cultures because it's right in the heart of the mountains. So basically, we are kind of like Himalayan babies.
Oh, fantastic. Do you think that's one of the reasons why you decided to start climbing mountains?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, most people tend to think that because we come from the mountainous regions. But I think it was all an exposure that we weren't aware of, which actually got us into climbing.
Yeah.
So,
because, our dad is in the military, and we kind of traveled the length and breadth of the nation. And it was very hardy that we would actually be near the mountains. Initially, we used to go as kids. I remember just to paint a picture or two, but no, we never thought that we would be climbing these someday. So I wouldn't say basing ourselves out of Dehradun was like the reason, or perhaps aided the fact that we could climb mountains. No.
So whose idea was it? Was it Nungshi or Tashi who first said, let's go climb a mountain?
Wow, that's almost like getting us into a conflict right now. No, I think for us, it was actually because being twins, I think our interests have always lined up together. I think it was a together sort of initiative, but our dad sort of, exposed us to it. And it's interesting because long story short, he wanted us to be, out of our comfort zones, wanting into getting to explore more than what actually we were doing. And so we ended up more than like, I think it was this questioning mind that kept us alive. And we just figured that we were in one of these institutes training for the climbs, So it was a result of like these combination of things that have happened in life, and credit to dad for even getting us into this in the first place.
Sure. So I've talked to several people who have started climbing mountains and set some sort of a record, whether it's a 7 summits or, 15 mountains above 8,000 meters or whatever it may be. But almost all of them start out by saying, well, I never really set out to do the 7 summits originally, but it turned out that way. Did the two of you decide to actually try to do the 7 summits and this Grand Slam challenge as well? Or was it more of a, well, let's go climb a mountain, let's go do another one?
Well, that's a great question. I think, we actually, you're right. I think we sort of discovered ourselves through our first climb. And Everest happened to be our first and one of its kind sort of dream. So I think it was actually after Everest when we came back to, base camp, when a lot of international climbers, they had seen us climbing the mountain and they were like, hey twins, you guys are amazing. Your stamina is perfect on the mountains. Have you ever thought of doing the 7 summits? And honestly, we had no idea what the 7 summits were until then. Because, growing up, having a dream for something that sort of relates to what the 7 summits were, I think that's what got us. And it was like, these Sherpas too, I mean, they would be like, you guys need to climb more because you have the right acclimatization skills and you guys are super fit, so you can easily do these 7 summits. And I'm like, wow, there's no easy, honestly, because we had figured that climbing Everest absolutely was difficult. So hearing about the 7 summits though was for us a revelation of some sort, because we not only wanted to climb the mountain, for us we needed to have a purpose to climb them. And I think that's part of us that has taught us, and this climbing thing is more than climbing to the top. For us, it was about the journey that we wanted to embark on. And with that journey also spread a message, because soon after our Everest climb in 2013, when we came back to India, there was a gang rape that happened in Delhi, in the capital, and it was on wildfire. So me and Nash were quite shocked because, having climbed to the top of the world, celebrating womanhood and, this girl power, it just felt so bad, like that we were still facing a challenge and we wanted to change that. So from that day, I mean, Nash and I, we sort of had decided that if we do something, we're going to do something so big that we become an inspiration for, sort of million other girls in our community. And that's what motivated us to take on the 7 Summit Challenge. And then, therefore, Grand Slam, so that we raised the bar high for the women. And that's what we've achieved and proved that women can.
That's beautiful. I want to talk about all the records you set, and I don't even know what the full list is. There's so many, but there are some things like first siblings or youngest siblings or first twins or first females or, and there's so many different ways that you can look at it, but here are just a few that I'd like to go over. First female twins to scale Mount Everest, first siblings and twins to climb the 7 summits, the first siblings and twins to complete Adventurers Grand Slam and the 3-Pole Challenge, youngest persons ever to complete the Adventurers Grand Slam and the 3-Pole Challenge, and that, I guess that record was broken last year, but that's still,
right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
First twins to reach the South Pole on skis, the first twins to reach the North Pole on skis, the first female twins to scale Mount Cook, New Zealand's tallest peak, And that's not one of the
Uh-huh.
7 summits, so it looks like you still climb.
No.
And
Right.
let's see. Boy, it just goes on. The first South Asians to complete the Adventures Grand Slam and the 3-pole challenge. The youngest and fastest South Asians to complete the Adventures Grand Slam and the 3-pole challenge. 2 years and a month. Wait a minute. Let's read that again. Youngest and fastest South Asian to complete Adventures Grand Slam and the 3-pole challenge. 2 years and a month? You did all of this in just over 2 years?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Just 2 years and a month, yes.
You must not have been doing anything else. This is crazy.
I know, poor bodies. I mean, I think we pushed our bodies too much. But then at that point, I think it was the adrenaline and, one thing led to the other. And so we ended up doing all of that, which to us seems surreal even today. But, it's fun that we were able to pull it off, honestly, and that too together. And that too on a first attempt, which was like a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I want to ask each of you individually a couple of questions just to kind of get some
Sure.
perspective. Let's start with Tashi. So, Tashi, you choose any one of the 7 summits you want to that most impacted you, and then tell us what that mountain was and what that impact was, how it changed you as a person.
Sure. So I think out of the 7, usually when people ask me this question, it's always hard because every climb definitely teaches you something or the other. But for me, my personal favorite will always be Everest. And that's not because it's the highest peak in the world or, it's accessible or it's the most sought after. But I think for me, it was about this connection that I felt with the mountain. I mean, when I first spoke about Everest to Dad, I just felt that there was some spiritual connection that I had with the mountain more than anything else. And I think that's what pulled me towards climbing it in the first place. And this whole journey, starting from, Kathmandu, where we start from, to Lukla, which is the shortest runway on the world. I think for me personally, that journey of just self-discovery through that, first initial trek, because we were like, 21, and we had no idea what, Everest looked like, apart from seeing that in books. And so having personally seen Everest through my own eyes and then to have climbed, I think I just feel so blessed. I was able to, see myself change as a woman, change as a person climbing that mountain. I mean, there were so many things from the challenges it imposed to just the way this whole journey ended up. And I think for me, I realized the power that I had within me, or the sort of wilderness that existed out of my comfort zone, was amazing. And I think Everest for me was that calling. It was like that initial, hey, I'd love to see you kind of feeling, where I felt like I wanted to see the mountain. And that's what happened. And in the pursuit of me climbing Everest, I think I discovered a lot more about the mountain and the community and this whole our existence on this planet and what my vision was for the future. So I think I sort of discovered myself through Everest, and it was a difficult sort of climb, but for me, I think it was a great sort of smooth journey because I just felt every pulse of it and just took it the way it came.
Wow. So Nungshi, what about you? Is yours quite a lot different or similar to Tashi?
No. Actually, it's pretty similar. I'm in love with the mountains, no doubt. But Everest is one of my favorites too, and that's for a lot of different reasons. It was a mountain where I truly discovered myself. I had a very spiritual calling, and I always tell this to people that for me, walking to the summit of any mountain is actually synonymous to an inner journey. And we viewed our relationship with them with a deep sense of humility. Why Everest was also special was because we had a very dear friend from Pakistan, Samina Beg, that we climbed it with. And so, it was like the story of 3 sisters and, the kind of bond and friendship we discovered during our journey to the summit of the world. It was just very powerful. And it just made us reflect on so many things that we normally do not put heed on. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely is a mountain that I truly respect. I mean, going to the Himalayas, there's something about the people, the culture, the serenity, the purity of it all. And I deeply appreciate and like that about the climb. And it's also the longest, right? Of all the summits, Everest, we're spending 2 months on the ice. It's definitely worth it.
By now, you certainly know who Bent Gate is. That's for a great reason. Bent Gate Mountaineering has been sponsoring the Adventure Sports Podcast almost from the beginning, and we really appreciate that. They've made it possible for all the great shows to continue coming your way. We want to say thanks by reminding you to go to them for your backcountry gear. If you live in Colorado, then just stop by their store in Golden. If not, go to bentgate.com. They have what you need, from the latest ultralight gear to the tried and true classics for climbing, hiking, and camping, like Arc'teryx, Hilleberg, Nemo, Western Mountaineering, and many more. Need advice? They have you covered there too. Their staff are passionate adventurers who can offer help from their own experiences. Bentgate also hosts lots of events and speakers. Check out their website to see the schedule and to see all of their products. Help take care of the Adventure Sports Podcast by getting your gear from Bentgate Mountaineering. And so your friend from Pakistan was Samina Baig. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Samina Baig.
Okay.
That's right.
And part of what's the word I should use here? Part of what we should highlight about this is that she is from Pakistan, you are from India, and the two countries have not been at peace. And you were working to promote peace between the two nations.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we tell people, right? A lot of people know the unfortunate legacy of conflict between the two nations. When we first met Samina, we were all so anxious, and so was she. And then, when we met, the first day we met her, we just knew that there was something special about us. There was this very sisterly, loving bond that was so very powerful. We felt it the very first day we saw her. And so, when we hear of things that people often talk about, all these stereotypes and, country norms, it just makes you think that we all are one, that we were no different. And through climbing, we kind of discovered that there are no boundaries. You could be from anywhere, you could be doing anything in your life. But when you come together and you climb, you just know that you were boundaryless. And so that's what I like about, the lessons and the learnings from such an outdoor pursuit, is that it changes the way you think about people, the culture, borders, everything.
Okay.
And it brings people together very close.
Well, I know that most people would probably say that Everest is the granddaddy of them all. That's the big mountain, right? But not everyone finds Everest the most difficult for them because of weather or circumstances. So, Nungshi, which of the 7 summits do you feel was the most challenging?
All right, let me think. Well, does this include the polar caps as well?
Let's throw that in just for fun, sure.
Okay. I'm thinking, because usually I talk of, Denali or North Pole. So I'm just thinking which of those two are actually more daunting for me. I would say North America's highest. Denali is perhaps one of the toughest climbs we've had to do. A lot of people had told us, actually, they'd already warned us that this is one mountain that you can't expect to, make it in your first attempt. So, we were quite worried about the first impression that we had about Denali. But each of the 7 summits, I would say, have, posed different and unique risks and challenges. So with Denali in Alaska, I remember there was this snowstorm that we were stuck in for over a week. And, we were running out of rations, and a lot of people were retreating. And they said, it would be stupid if you guys were to go up. But there was always this thing about the mountain. The weather patterns were very different. They were pretty nasty, and the kind of frost chills and frost nips we discovered on the climb we had never experienced elsewhere. So I would say even the chill factor was definitely more as compared to other climbs that we've had. And plus, also there's this whole thing of doing everything yourself. In the Himalayas, everybody knows that Sherpas are of assistance. They are your guides. They help you out. They carry things for you. But in Denali, you're pretty much doing everything yourself. Whether it's carrying your ration, whether it's carrying your gear, and it's a lot of stuff. We had almost 70 lb to about 150 lb during the climb, and we were, doing this whole thing of caching our stuff as we went along, and that was quite exhausting because it's almost like doing the climb twice.
Oh, sure.
So you cache your stuff and you go back again, and it's just very, very tiring. And it's, yeah, the whole thing about the mountain is so daunting. And it's one of the toughest that we kind of experienced. And technically also it's a very, very sound mountain. There's the Autobahn. There's just like, this is such a daunting climb.
Oh, yeah. So Tashi, the two of you chose to climb Mount Carstens instead of the little bump in Australia. And
Right.
tell us what that was like.
Oh, it was honestly, it was nerve-wracking. I think for me and Nash, having decided on Costons, so the thing was we didn't really fly to the base camp, which meant we had to trek through the thick rainforest, and it was intense. Like, I remember going to this small town in Papua, which is like Sugapa. It's a small village. And, obviously we were part of a group because apparently, like, that whole region is quite unsafe for climbers just because of people who are still quite hostile and, they're not that welcoming sort. And so we were quite worried because we read a lot about Castans and just the whole tribal existence and people, still with primitive ways living their lifestyle there. So I remember landing in this airport, small airstrip in Sagapa, and people, oh my goodness, we were very terrified. We just like, I don't think we belong here. We need to get the hell out of here. And, going through this whole scene, I mean, we trekked through these thick Papuan rainforests, and it was quite intense because it would rain 24 hours a day, literally. And, we had to wear, instead of normal hiking boots, we were always wearing rain boots, and we would be drenched in water and mud and rain. And then by the time we'd reach camps after camps, it was just quite long and arduous. And, we didn't even have the privilege to sort of fly to the base camp of Costons because, it's an expensive affair. But I always tell people, like, that trek was definitely an adventure of some sort. And we learned so much out of that trek. Just seeing the people, the local existence, learning things. Because the only way we could communicate with these people were hand gestures, and they wouldn't understand anything else. So all these tribal people who'd come along and our porters who were actually from Sugapa, they were just like very not welcoming. And every time we'd be like, hey, do you know where the next camp is? Like, there was nothing we could talk about because language was such a barrier. And so, I remember we would like sort of talk to the women first because we just felt more comfortable with women on board. And, we try to build that relationship with dancing and having fun or laughing and try to really build that connection with the local people. Otherwise, when we looked at the men, they would just with machetes and like, they would try to look at you like, yeah, just do your stuff and get out of here. So It was definitely a challenge, but it's a great adventure to go on. It definitely tests your patience, your skills, and your whole capacity to sort of adapt to such situations. Yeah, it was great, definitely. But like, I'm glad we chose Costons because it sort of opened the different perspective in terms of one of those 7 summits, being one of the 7 summits because it's unique. In fact, it's the only mountain in the crater which has ice on the summit. So it's a great phenomena. And, it was our first rock climbing sort of expedition because more than rock climbing, we are into ice climbing and high altitude climbing. So for us, rock climbing up to the summit was something. And quite a dangerous mission, to be very honest.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Uh-huh.
It's such a contrast, too, to the mountain in Australia, right? And
absolutely.
I think that anyone who chooses to climb the mountain in Australia, that's legit. That's legit. But when you climb Carstens, then wow,
right.
You've chosen another very challenging expedition climb, and I think maybe that sets it apart. So,
oh, absolutely, I think I'll agree with that. I think anybody who does Carstens would agree with that. And I don't know, but like I think you can drive up to Kosciuszko, isn't it, Nash? I think so, right? In Australia, yes. So that's the other thing. Yeah, that was quite a bummer.
How does reaching the North Pole or the South Pole contrast with some of these high summits? How is it different to trek across to get to a point rather than trekking up to get to a summit?
Oh, there are actually very, very different. Looking at the ice caps, you're focusing more. Your skill sets change because you're looking at skiing instead of, climbing. So obviously, with the skiing setting, it was very different. For us, the training bit was very different as compared to all the climbs, because here we had to endure a lot of wait for long distance, and we would ski for long distance versus on the climb. There were moments of rest and recoup, taking time to get to different camps and all of that. Also, the elevation compared to the climbs, we didn't have to deal with any altitude issues on the poles. But the only thing that really got us was the dipping temperatures, which would fall down to minus 60 degrees Celsius at times. Again, very extreme of both conditions.
And also, I think it's just the means too, right? I think in the polar expeditions, we needed different skill set, we needed different training schedule, because we were looking more of endurance than strength, and being able to pull and haul up a lot of weight, which is about 130 lbs, on our bodies was too much to handle. And I think that's what tested us, actually. North and the South Pole, they were quite an intense sort of expedition for us, because, dealing with this constant battle of like nature against human beings, things that surround the whole challenge, honestly. So I think the poles apart, North, South Pole compared to Seven Summits. Seven Summits is more like climbing. So, you'd require a different skill set, which we already had. So that wasn't much of a challenge. But for the North and South Pole, we had to endure much more. We had to go through a specific training.
Even mentally, I think it was very different, right? So, even in the North Pole, there was no perfect destination. There was no summit. It was kind of like an open and a closed-ended thing. So we were skiing for hours. So the motivation level was very different while climbing the Seven Summits and the poles. Just the drive and the thing of, keep going and keep doing it differed a lot on the poles as well. So apart from that, the region itself, pretty much skiing on a floating sheet of ice in the North Pole, and in the South Pole, it's the endless skiing hours. There is no, you kind of see the horizon, but there is no destination. There's no like perfect spot to go to. On the summit, where the summit is, and that's the high point, the peak point. But on the poles, it's very hard to determine that. Mm-hmm. So like I said, the motivation, oh my God, to keep going is so different.
I can see that. And I love summiting mountains, because when you get there, you're really there. You're at the top.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
That's right.
What was it like to get, especially like to the North Pole? How did you decide? Okay, we really are at the North Pole, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm telling you, if it wasn't for the GPS reading, the satellite reading, we wouldn't actually know where the North Pole is.
Honestly.
And in fact, Tashi and I was in a bit of a thing, because I remember seeing the 89 point whatever 99. And I was like, hey, do you think we're close to the 90-degree mark? And she's like, yeah. And, it was ironic, because for the Grand Slam list, we were asked who got there first. I was like, wait, I saw the reading of 90-degree north first, but my sister got there before me. So I don't know who made it there, but it was just that.
I did, honestly, Nash.
And it would like change constantly. I remember being at the 90-degree north, and then it would suddenly change to 89.9, and then I was like, wait.
But I got the picture, so I win anyway. I think luckily for us, climbing the Seven Summits, we did it together. But this one,
oh my God,
unfortunately, had to be one of us.
So
funny.
It was that reading, and we have a picture of that, which is legit.
Yeah.
If you want to get into backpacking, but you're not sure where to start, go check out campcrate.net. Camp Crate can help you plan the backpacking trip of a lifetime and supply you with all the rental gear you need. Simply go online and choose your gear and your itinerary. Camp Crate will then ship your gear anywhere in the U.S. When your trip is finished, use the pre-printed return label to ship the gear back. It's that easy. Camp Crate. Rent, explore, return.
Well, what's next? I mean, you finished the Grand Slam at such a young age, and it's just remarkable. I guess you were both 23. Is that correct?
That's right.
Wow.
We completed it.
Yeah, so that's just amazing. So now what? I mean, having done that, what are the big goals afterwards?
This is, I think, the most asked question for the two of us. Honestly, when we were on this pursuit of climbing the Seven Summit and Explorers Grand Slam, we felt like that was the end of it all. But actually, a lot is in mind and a lot yet to crystallize for us. We actually are sort of ambassadors for Mountain Hardware, which is in San Francisco. It's an American brand. And so we are part of this Impact Initiative program, which looks at positive messaging through the adventures that we embark on. So right now, currently, we, have this foundation that we are running, which is the Nungshi Tashi Foundation. With that vision, we basically wish to inspire and engage more girls in the outdoors and really bring in that outdoor spirit among young Indians. So within the foundation, I think our main focus is our foundation. And to further sort of contribute to girl empowerment, we established this foundation with basically just the twin goals of, sort of developing mountaineering as a sport in India, but also girl empowerment through outdoor adventure. And the vision of our foundation is actually to make India an outdoor nation with sort of equal and active participation of girls and women. So we're very excited about the foundation actually, and it's working on two verticals at the moment. So we have the Girls Outdoor sort of livelihoods program, wherein we sort of train these girls in skill set that is required in the outdoors so that they can be potential, guides and explorers in their own field. The other is also the outdoor leadership school that we wish to run in the heart of our city here in Dehradun, which is obviously to engage young kids and ignite the spirit of sort of adventure among these young kids. Because I think technology is taking over, but we don't have to forget that outdoors and fitness and, just getting out there definitely helps in a personality sort of development for the future. So this is what our goal within the foundation is. And I mean, as far as our brand is concerned, I mean, Nash and I, we're very creative people. I don't know. Like our passion was dancing and then it turned out to be climbing. So you don't know what next. I mean, we'd be flying to the moon someday. I don't know.
It could happen.
Only becoming bigger and older. Yes. And I think adventure wise, we will still, embark on the Girls for Ice Cap challenge that we've thought of for a very long time. Which includes, skiing to Patagonia, Greenland, North and South Pole, but this time the whole length. The only challenge, of course, has always been the funds for the same. So we'll try and, fundraise for our next climbs and ski expeditions and make our way to the far ends of the world. Even further, wherever that point is.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you are continuing on to explore and live life large and to try to set an example for others to let people know that they too can go out and accomplish their dreams. Tell me more about the Indian girl child. What are the details about that?
So I think, given India's context, I mean, we firmly believe that girls are absolutely not in the forefront of like sports or like climbing. And not only that, I think for us, when we finished Everest, I mean, our dad comes from a village in India, which is the village of Haryana. And Haryana has this whole, reputation for bad female versus male ratio. Because, I mean, growing up, I remember how dad would often talk about girl child being killed in his village. And I'd be like very surprised. I'd be like, why that happens? And there were a lot of socioeconomic sort of things associated with it. And this whole thing with killing the girl child was becoming so common among a lot of individuals and families that it really sort of was quite disturbing. The news took it on, and, there was a point in time in India's history where there were just, there were reporters who were just reporting female fetuses being, sort of eaten by dogs. And like the whole thing with killing the girl child in the first place just made our mind go berserk. We went into the most integrated sort of part of understanding why this happens and, really knowing why people don't prefer girls. And that's, I think, primarily because growing up, just hearing about women in India, we were under such stereotypical notions about just doing a particular thing or having a particular motive of our existence and not really associating women in the forefront of any sort of skill set. So I think it was really challenging because when we went to our dad's village soon after Everest, I mean, I could tell from the way people were. And I won't even blame the community because they grew up with this whole notion that, once girls get married, they'll go, they won't be able to manage businesses, they won't handle this, they won't handle that. So I think there were a lot of stereotypes associated with women. And I think it's definitely changing, but I still feel the rural sectors are still affected by it. The more
we learned about it, it was people who were educated who were committing these crimes, like people who were doctors or people who were educated and they knew what this whole thing was. So it was really shocking. And I think now the ratio has gotten better because for the past 10 years, it was really bad. It was 500 women for some 1,000 men. And now it's just gotten up to 800 women to 1,000 men, which is a great ratio. But still, I mean, you still hear about people killing the girl child just by virtue of her existence. And that's really shocking to us.
Oh yeah, it's horrifying is what it is.
It really is. And I feel like, gender discrimination and, female feticide, these are such complex and deep-rooted sociocultural phenomena in our country, that requires extraordinary efforts to eliminate. It needs the cooperation and involvement of multi-stakeholders. This will actually remain our key agenda for the future, which, we tend to execute through our foundation. We'll use all forms of media to spread awareness and, to lobby with governments and corporate and civil society to effectively implement policies and projects on girl empowerment. Because even if, there are big words thrown around, there's very less on ground. The action is missing. So we want to build that image for India where girls get their equal right.
Absolutely. So it sounds like progress has been made, at least with the female-male ratios, right?
Absolutely.
But I know that there's more that can be done and should be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can people get involved with this? What can people do if this is something that strikes a chord with someone and they want to help somehow?
Sure. I think for the most, initiatives that have been taken for the girl child, it's through campaigning and it's through social media, right? And I think being made the ambassadors for Uttarakhand, like our state, for Save the Girl Child, Educate the Girl Child, it's just that people tend to come and help with working with organizations that look into empowering these women and girls. And there are a couple of organizations that we've worked with in the past. One of them, of course, through our foundation, we've had a great interest of especially girls coming on board and wanting to help other girls or telling us that, hey, we'd love to climb mountains. I think it's just building this community and network of women and girls to really feel motivated and elevated every day. So I think the only way, I think people could contribute is to basically partake in platforms and social medias and through outdoor existing organizations that look into empowering women. Because I think, honestly, if you were to try to go physically and sort of change things, it's always harder because, there are certain policies around, rural sectors or just getting out there. But going through an organization definitely helps because they understand what the whole scene is like or what is required and what is not. So
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to sort of achieve through our foundation too, is to be able to touch many lives and especially motivational talks, right? We go to every village or we go to places where gender has been the main messaging through our talks too. So that helps spread the message and really empower girls around you to sort of stay strong and change the world one step at a time.
You mentioned social media several times. And the question then is, how can people get in touch with you on social media?
Sure. I manage most of the social media. I think it's become a very powerful tool for the world to sort of get into. And well, we've often been called the Everest twins, but our Instagram is actually Twin Climbers. But Tashi Nungshi, I mean, we are quite available on Twitter as Nungshi Tashi, and on Facebook where we respond to people and, especially people wanting to get in touch. So I personally manage most of my social media, platforms. And I think I've totally accepted and learned that social media is definitely getting big and very accessible to people, no matter where you come from, all the corners of the world. Literally, it has the ability to touch lives. So I think social media is definitely, that's why I use social media a lot, because things are changing. I mean, in 21st century, I think social media has become the platform for many people to sort of promote, to engage, to inspire, and to share their story. So we could be reached at Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. That's what we do mostly. But at the same time, I mean, we could leave in an email for you just in case people want to write to us personally. Yeah.
So Twin Climbers, that's one thing to search for. And Nungshi Tashi.
And Nungshi Tashi.
And
that's right.
Spell Nungshi Tashi for us.
Nungshi Tashi, Tashi. Yeah.
Well, I'll bet that you have more stories that came out of this Grand Slam than, you could spend a lifetime telling stories and never be done. But I would love to hear some funny stories, something surprising that happened that made you laugh in the midst of all of these struggles.
Oh gosh, I think let's see something funny. I guess it was us on Denali. I don't know. I remember this time when me and Ash were stranded on Camp 3 with our fellow colleague climbers and like a guy. And it was snowing outside. And I remember nobody was in the kitchen tent. And I don't know, for some reason, Nungshi, like, she started like dancing and started doing these moves that I couldn't just handle because I was like, wait, how did this come out? And she just randomly, like, we were all just sitting in the kitchen tent, me and Nash, and we were cooking and we were just having some fun, but there was no music. There was nothing with us. And Nash suddenly, I don't know, she just got up and started doing these moves and like breaking her leg and I don't know what not. And it was a time when I could emulate her and one of our guides ended up inside the tent and I was like, shit. Like, I don't want myself to be a part of this whole thing. But it was quite funny. Like, we sort of like try to motivate each other doing these things. And honestly, I think dancing is something that really excites us. Music, dance, and it's just fun to be around the mountains, having to do all that stuff. And I don't know, we just crack up for most things. I think we just talk so much about life and, in general, just our nature and people that we meet. It's just so fun. Like, just to have this twinship and this connection, to be able to share things, it's just amazing.
That's fun. So when times got very discouraging, which I'm sure they did many, many, many times, right? When times got really discouraging, then how did you keep each other going? What techniques did you use to stick to it and push through?
Yeah, I guess one of the mantras that we used was, that the pain is temporary and the joy of reaching the destination is lifelong. We used to constantly keep reminding ourselves that this is a fun experience, and we would change all these, like being super positive, right? Transforming our negative energy into a very positive one, saying things and doing things, constantly motivating each other just to take one step at a time. Because we knew, all these things that we were doing would involve a huge amount of challenge along the way. And for us, we never would let them stop us because it was fun. We made it a very fun experience. Every challenge and obstacle that keep coming our way, we would try and change the way we thought about certain things and, mentally also never give up and keep reminding ourselves that, no, this is totally worth it. What you're doing is absolutely great. And you're right, there are moments where you kind of feel down, which is why Tash and I do a lot of yoga, and then we do a lot of these mindful lessons for ourselves where we spend significant amount of time away up in the hills listening to some Buddhist chants and then really taking that as a very sober, subtle way of igniting ourselves. Mm-hmm.
Well, do you think that it helped being twins and sisters and knowing each other that well? Do you think that helped to stay encouraged because you were doing it together?
Oh, absolutely. I think we do credit our achievement to this twinship. I think, on a mountain, obviously, when you look at the risks involved and there are challenges, I think having a partner that sort of understands you and your emotions and is content with the same feeling definitely helps. It's one of those things, when you're going through a challenge together, when you're going through these hardships together, it makes you more comfortable than doing it all by yourself. We couldn't have been more blessed than to be together, celebrating our existence and nurturing sort of this relationship. Because I think it's only gotten richer from our experiences. And I think we have understood ourselves better through this sport and this togetherness. And that's why we hugely attribute the success to our twinship and to be able to, live those moments together and to celebrate our existence together and really feel that advantage of, having a partner that totally understands you. And,
Right.
She would never let me, it's almost like we would never let each other give up because we knew that this is what we really wanted. And it was a byproduct of our dreams. And that's what motivated us to actually, never give in and really help each other out in times of hardships and move forward. So it definitely helps, no doubt.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I would say in ordinary routine life, we may never recognize how special this inheritance is, but it is in extremely dangerous situations that we've constantly been through the past, 4 to 5 years. We know that it is a most precious resource. So for us, being together is our biggest energy.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to put you on the spot just a little bit. Nungshi, will you tell us what you feel is one of Tashi's greatest characteristics?
Greatest characteristics. That she is very strong-willed, more than I am. That, she just doesn't give up. And I really like that about her. She's fiercely determined, I really like that about her. She's very strong-willed.
Well, Tashi, same question for you. What do you think one of Nungshi's greatest strengths is?
Oh, wow. Okay, so being 21 minutes older, I think Nash has this... No, honestly, I think she's definitely very caring, and, she wants me to have the best in the world. I think Nash is an extrovert. She's very outgoing. She's cool. So I think I really like that about her. Like, she connects with people instantly, and she has this in her. Like, she loves talking. So she's the talkative twin. But I love that about her because I think she covers up most for myself, So I think she takes charge on that too. I mean, she's like a bossy. No, not really bossy.
You clearly know that she has very nicely hijacked the entire conversation the entire time. So now you know who's talking what.
Right. Well, it's been such a pleasure to visit with the two of you. I am so impressed with what you've accomplished, but not only that, with the way that you conduct your affairs and the way that you speak about it, encouraging others and fighting for causes that are worth fighting for. I think it's just a wonderful thing that you're doing. So I want to congratulate you very much on your accomplishments and say more power to you.
Thank you so much,
man, that means a lot.
Hopefully we get to go on an adventure with you someday.
That would be so fun. Yes. Well, if you ever make it to Colorado, we'll take you up a few shorter mountains, just 14,000 feet, but we can have a lot of fun.
Oh, well, they've been in our to-do list for a very long time. There was like the 14ers that there was a book that was gifted to us by a family living in Napa. And I remember the first thing I read was, whoa, the 14ers. I had no clue there were so many of them, like heaps. So I was like telling Tashi, like 56, let's just do it at some point. So it'll be really nice.
Yeah, we'll come to Colorado. We'll help make it
Colorado
possible. Absolutely. That'd be fantastic. Well, thank you again so much for your time today.
Absolutely, Curtis. We
thanks.
loved every bit of it and hope you have a great day. Well, we'll have a good morning, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, you bet. And for all the listeners out there, wow, isn't that inspiring? It just goes to show if you put your mind to it, you can do just about anything. And I think it's so amazing.
Absolutely.
Until the next show, make sure that you set some goals, dream some dreams, and get out there and do your own thing and have some fun.